We've had accelerated activity, numerous multiple UFO sightings, displays in effect for people, sometimes hundreds of people at once, and increased global communications has made it very widely known around the planet. We get reports from remote villages in South Africa, from remote villages in Mongolia, from remote villages in India, from remote villages in the Arctic Circle. We know it's going on globally at an ever-increasing rate. This mission involved efforts to regenerate their species. And to do so, they needed reproductive material from humans. For one thing, it explained why these beings were taking sperm and ova and fetal implants from people. It also explained why there was an interest in the genetics that ran many generations of one family. They're on the downside of their evolution. They're de-evolving. They need new blood. They need new DNA. That's why they're here. Here is they're studying human sexuality. And by golly, it looks like they're studying human pleasure and pain responses as well.
When the victims are starting to be sacrificed, it's the scent of the blood. And they start shape-shifting at that point in time. And they can hardly wait to get to the blood. It's like they're addicted to the blood, and then the consumption of human flesh that follows. There are certain times when they will actually do a sacrifice, or there will have been someone doing a sacrifice and it's not happening fast enough for them. So they will step in and finish it themselves, because the sacrifice the ritual has to be gone through. It's sacrificially, ritualistically, it has to have been gone through. And they will step right in and just start tearing the throat out. And they're getting all this blood from the jugular vein at the same time. And that has happened when there are many there that are going to be sacrificed and they just can't wait. And tearing into the contents of the abdomen and stomach of a victim afterwards. During the rituals, it's much easier for them to hold their reptilian form. They can stay in that form. What it is that they have a hard time holding their human form.
You see that?
I see about 10 minutes ago there was one.
Yeah.
Heaps of people on the street having a look up in the sky. This is David Attenborough.
And what we have here is what we believe to be an alien.
Memories are a strange thing. There are tangible memories that can be proven factually. There are suppressed memories, which are clouded recollections of actual events. Memories that are a mixture of real and unreal events. Memories based on imagination, and possibly most frightening of all, memories that have been intentionally programmed within the mind of a person, which might consist of anything between actual real experiences to entirely designer memories that have been inserted to cover up experiences that are far more stranger than fiction.
Yes, he said, Clark, I can say certain things, but there's things I cannot because we were all hushed up about our mission by NASA and the DOD to shut up and not talk about things or lose their retirement, or maybe worse. About my friend NASA astronaut and first NASCAR lunar rover car driver on the moon.
Okay.
He saw UFOs above the moon, and he saw crystal buildings.
Mind control is real big with the Illuminati right now. From one-on-one mind control, breaking the person down that way, or the chemicals in the air, or HAARP, H-A-A-R-P, and the frequencies, and the buzzing in your ears, bzzz, and all those radio towers. And there's all different ways they do that.
There are those who walk amongst us as human beings, but who are more than human beings. There are such things as gods, and they walk amongst us. They control our destiny. They control us through newspapers. They control us through money. And they control us through religion and spiritual confusion. And
about my friend NASA astronaut and first NASCAR lunar rover car driver on the moon.
Okay.
He saw UFOs above the moon, and he saw crystal buildings.
The reptilian stands between 7 and 8 feet tall, and as expected, has the look of a reptile. They too are erect standing bipeds. The head is slightly conical in shape and has 2 bony ridges riding from the brow across a back-sloping skull. There appears to be no bridge between the eyes. The nasal openings are at the end of a small flattened nose and are described as 2 small slits that slant upwards in a V formation. Small openings can be seen on the side of their heads, but no ears as such. The eyes contain vertically slit pupils with a flame or an orange-coloured surround. They have wide lipless mouths which contain various types of teeth, including fangs. Some have thin fleshy spines under their chin. Their skin is scaled, usually greenish-brown or light grey in colour, and hairless. The scales on their backs, thighs and upper arms are quite large, with hands, abdomen and face being covered with smaller scales, allowing more flexibility. Reptilians' bodies are lean and firm with powerful arms and legs, long arms and 3 fairly long fingers and an opposable thumb. The feet have 3 toes and 1 recessed 4th toe that is toward the backside of the ankle. Claws on the hands and feet are short and blunt.
Reptilians are an ancient race. They were actually a hybrid mix many billions of years ago, which came into a foundation of us not really understanding who and what they are. We still don't really understand the total mixing, but we believe that there's a centering of space that brings them through those who come from another outside energy connected to parallel worlds.
At the beginning of 1947, yet another expedition by the Admiral Explorer Richard Byrd arrived in Antarctic shores. It was a very strange expedition. Unlike his previous 3, this was one completely financed by the US Navy. Operation High Jump was his code name.
Under the command of Admiral Byrd, there was a powerful military squadron, an aircraft carrier, 12 super ships, a modern submarine, more than 20 airplanes and helicopters, and about 5,000 people and staff. You will agree, a strange team for a scientific expedition.
December 2nd, 1946. Before the start of the expedition, Admiral Byrd at a press conference said, "My expedition is military in nature," giving no further details. Admiral Byrd at a press conference said, "My expedition is military in nature," giving no further details.
The answer of January 1947, full-scale aerial reconnaissance began surveying the Antarctic region of Queen Island. It all went to plan for a few weeks. Tens of thousands of photos were taken. Suddenly, the inexplicable seemed to happen. The 6-month expedition terminated after only 2 months. Fleeing the Antarctic coast, it was a real fast retreat. They lost a destroyer, almost half their carrier-based aircraft. In dozens of sailors and officers took commission investigation. Members of the U.S. Congress, Admiral Byrd, said the following: "In the event of another war, America can be attacked by an enemy that has the ability to fly from pole to pole with incredible speed."
What made the Americans flee? In 1945, 18 months before Admiral Byrd's expedition began, 2 German submarines entered Maldiberry, port in Argentina, surrendering to authorities. These were no extraordinary submarines, they were from the so-called Führer convoy.
This was a top-secret fleet hurling missions. The details have remained a secret until now. The submarine crews were reluctant to cooperate. Even so, the Americans learned a few things. The commander of a U-boat, U-530, spoke of his involvement in Operation codename Vlagrevi. 2 weeks before the war's end, the U-boat U-530 left the quay heading for the shores of Antarctica. And board of the submarine were passengers with faces covered in bandages, as well as the Third Reich relics. The commander of another U-boat, U-97, Heinz Schaeffer, testified that he followed the same route. It was found that the German submarines repeatedly followed the Antarctic route. But why go there?
Antarctica. In 1820 it was discovered by 2 Russian explorers. Here are the names. Since then, this mysterious continent, bigger than Europe, continues to attract explorers like a magnet. However, the 10-meter high, sheer icy cliffs made the continent impregnable for many years. For almost a century, Antarctica remained unknown. Only coastlines were marked on the maps. Suddenly, this distant and useless icy continent aroused a strange interest in the Germans. Large funds were allocated for Antarctic study.
These identified flying objects don't only exist in form of glowing ball of some vague nature, but rather have a different etiological body. Americans have always been interested in the technological legacy of Germany. There is absolutely no doubt about this. Suddenly, the inexplicable occurs. The expedition designed to last 6 months is quickly aborted after 2 months, leaving the Antarctic coast deserted. It was an actual retreat. In the late 1930s, 2 research expeditions were arranged. This happened just before the war. It was due to start. In January 1939, 2 catapult-controlled planes, the Passat and Boris, took off from the deck of the Schwarzbahn. They began patrolling Queen Maud. In 3 weeks, Luftwaffe pilots with metal pinions marked with swastikas managed to secure the Third Reich territory the size of Germany. It was called New Swabia. 1939, the experienced polar explorer Captain Alfred Richter wrote, "I've completed the mission entrusted to me by Air Marshal Göring. For the first time, German aircraft flew over the Antarctic continent. Every 25 kilometers, we dropped pendants covering an area of about 600,000 square kilometers, of which 355 square kilometers were photographed. Göring's flying aces had done their job. This unusual mission then passed the Führer sea walls, the U-boats, commanded by Admiral Karl Donitz. In secrecy, German U-boats set course to Earth's end, the icy Antarctic shores. Later, Karl Donitz let slip a strange phrase: 'My submarines have found a true paradise on Earth.' In 1943, at the peak of the war with Russia, Grand Admiral Donitz uttered another, no less mysterious phrase: 'The German submarines fleet is proud.' At the end, On the other end of the world, we have made an impregnable theater for our Führer. Back then, the Grand Admiral of the German naval fleet's words were only understood by a very small circle of insiders. Today, we only hypothesize what the Grand Admiral meant.
After the war, in Nazi secret archives, intriguing photos and drawings were discovered. They proved that German scientists were actually engaged in the development of disc-shaped aircrafts. At the time, nothing like this existed. How did Nazi scientists manage to make such a technological leap? Anunnaki Society, the most mysterious organization in the Third Reich. Even now the secret services of the leading powers hunt for its secrets. But why? It's simple. This was the only known historical structure engaged in the study of occult and mysticism, to have state funding and support. An organization in the world that had at its disposal such a volume of data, or had such influence on the development of occult technology as the Anunnaki. Officially, the society was founded in 1935 and was intended to explore the historical roots of the German nation. Anunnaki, when translated, means legacy of the ancestors. However, the society's scope of interest was broader than ancient German history study. Third Reich leaders understood an army's size wasn't necessary to win future wars. Nazi ideology was based on the theory that in the past there was a powerful knowledge was preserved. Specifically, they were tasked with reviving the superhuman in Germany and their role as ancient Aryan descendants. They were very interested in Atlantis. The scientists believed it the Aryan race's native home. Therefore, Germany was the rightful heir to Atlantean theological knowledge. Legend says it's where giant ships and flying vehicles were driven by an unknown force. To search for hidden knowledge to seek knowledge of the history of civilization. There's no doubt that Anunnaki members knew of an amazing map that was discovered by historians in 1929. The map was created in the early 16th century by the famous Turkish admiral. The shocking fact is the way the map's detail mirrors the real Antarctic coast. This was 300 years before the continent's official discovery. In this map notes, the admiral wrote that he drew it from numerous sources, some at least 3,000 years old. Well, the most puzzling thing was the coastline of Antarctica, which is shown without its ice cover. The map provokes the imagination even today. Here's the verdict of a U.S. Air Force specialist.
The coastline was plotted on this map before it was covered in ice. The thickness of ice in this area is about 1.5 kilometers. We do not have any suggestions how this data could have been obtained in 1513.
The international experts gave the map a thorough examination and concluded it was more precise than 20th century maps. Seismic analysis confirmed the fact which scientists until recently were unaware some of the mountains, once considered a single massif, proved in reality to be separate islands as stated on the old map. 70 years ago, one can imagine the impact of this map on the founders of the Aryan race theory. It brought hope to the search for the technological heritage of the Atlantis. One hypothesis states that Antarctica is the former Atlantis, buried under the sea as a result of pole displacement. Once they knew these maps existed, they also realized that knowledge could be stored somewhere else. But where? Recently, huge underground lakes were found a kilometer deep under the ice. The lake's temperature is 18 degrees Celsius. Located above the water surface are dome-like vaults filled with warm air. It's possible that from these heated lakes, a constant river of warm water flows into the ocean. For thousands of years, these warm rivers may have formed large underground ice tunnels, perfect for construction of sacred bases. From the ocean's edge, any submarine could easily pass under these coastal ice into the tunnels. Here it was, a complete base, immune from storms and polar cold, totally hidden from outsiders and out of the enemy's reach.
We determined to decide on the location for a secret base. Others make secret zone that seems from the outside to be totally inaccessible. The polar zones, including Antarctica, would be a wholly suitable area to find this level of security.
According to witness testimony and other documents, the Nazis had in fact managed to create a top-secret Antarctic base. Its code name, the Base 211. At the start of 1939, regular trips were made between Antarctica and Germany in a specially equipped and modified research vessel named Swabia. Mine constructing equipment and other machinery, including railroads, trucks, and giant panel building mills, were transported to Queen Maud Island. At the same time, scientists, engineers, and highly skilled workers arrived. Why was Germany in need of such a remote base? There are various assumptions. Some believe that Germany wanted control of the southern seas. Others, that the Germans were attracted to vast Antarctic natural resources, such as uranium, which is essential for the creation of superweapons. That in case of defeat in the war, Antarctica would be a safe haven for the elite of the Third Reich. By 1942, transfer of inhabitants to New Swabia began, including scientists, engineers, members and representatives of the Nazi Party and German state. Certain secret industrial technologies were also transferred from Germany. Post-war, the Americans recruited German scientists to work in the United States, but were shocked to find thousands of highly qualified Third Reich specialists had vanished and weren't listed as dead. Over 100 submarines also vanished, never to be found.
It's clear that American intelligence obtained information concerning the fact that part of the Nazi legacy and its technical potential in terms of researchers and scientists had evacuated from Germany and at Haiti to the Antarctic polar zone became the center of their attention. There is also the testimony from German submariners who surrendered. The territorial authorities, it seems, all this extremely alarmed the Americans.
At the end of 1946, the famous polar explorer and Admiral of the US Navy Richard Byrd received the order to destroy the Nazi base in Antarctica. But things went wrong. The resistance met by the American squadron even now raises many questions. Admiral Byrd not only reported fighter jets with incredible capacities to Washington, he also discussed an attack on the expedition by strange flying saucers. They emerged from the water at high speed, causing heavy damage to the expedition. On February 26, 1947, a battle took place which is described by a member of the expedition, an experienced pilot called John Sagerson. They flew vertically out of the water in a fury, leaping between the masts of the ships with such speed that the airflow perturbed and dislodged the radio antenna. I didn't have time to blink an eye. The two Corsair from the Casablanca were slain by some kind of mysterious ray shot from the nose section of the flying saucers. They then dived into the water near the ships. At the time I was on the Casablanca's deck, and I saw it as you now see me. I didn't understand these objects were silent as they floated between ships, like a satanic beast spitting deadly fire. Suddenly I saw the destroyer, Murdoch, which was about 120 feet away. The flames flashed and it began to sink. Despite the danger, rescue teams and lifeboats were immediately dispatched to the disaster site from other ships. That nightmare lasted about 20 minutes. When the saucers again dived under the water, we evaluated our losses. They were terrifying. Anunnaki's secret expeditions began a search for ancient relics and manuscripts around the world from Tibet to South America. Notably, they hunted for the Knights Templar archives, which contain indications they visited America long before Columbus. Apparently, the Templars owned secret manuscripts, similar to the map. It suggests they knew something vital about Antarctica. In the occupied territories, SS Special Commando units removed archives and libraries. The Anunnaki confiscated libraries of theological faculties and various secret societies as soon as space was allocated.
The Anunnaki, I caught a huge library. According to me, a librarian from one of the post-Agnostic libraries, in March 1945, he witnessed Soviet troops approaching German territory. the NRB were evacuating a library and carrying away 140,000 volumes. The library catalogue would be very interesting.
It's possible the Anunnaki learned something incredible about Antarctica. They made the study of this continent one of the main Nazi leadership goals. Actually, the SS were after very specific knowledge. The Grail Cup, together with the Holy Spear, opens the way to world domination. Hitler became aware of this legend before World War I. The Spear of Destiny was safely kept in the Vienna Museum. Hitler possessed the spear in 1938 after Germany annexed Austria. In order to rule the world, he needed the Grail Cup to combine the legacy spear, symbol of the active male principle and the world's scientific knowledge, with the cup, symbol of the active female principle and the symbol of wisdom. This is the dominant idea which preoccupied the Third Reich's elite. To fuse the latest scientific achievements with centuries-old knowledge, even in the absence of a rational explanation. It could have been an attractive and productive idea if it wasn't for the purpose the Nazis pursued: supreme reign over the world. To enslave it for the chosen race, utilize the occult knowledge and technology. For scientific research, the Anunnaki employed elite staff, mainly world-famous scientists, and hundreds of employees from more than 50 university departments. The Anunnaki engaged in the study of maths, astronomy, genetics, medicine, and the occult development of unconventional weapons, plus psychological and psychotropic methods of mass influence. They explored occult science, religious and mystical practices, exploring people's paranormal abilities.
The NRB were seriously engaged in this research. The factual evidence for this for the Anunnaki directives by their management, which included Himmler before the war began in 1939, studies were carried out concerning the paranormal abilities of employees of the Anunnaki, the results were recorded on person files. When they were tortured officers with these paranormal abilities, along with others who displayed paranormal skills, were merged into a single Anunnaki department. Unfortunately, there are no records on what this department was working on, or more importantly, what the results were achieved.
One of the main objectives pursued by the Anunnaki experts was the use of paranormal abilities to contact unknown beings, or outsiders as they call them. The aim was to obtain from highly developed extraterrestrial and ancient terrestrial civilizations superior technological knowledge. It had already occurred. December 1990. Secret Thule Society members, the Anunnak's predecessor, are gathered at the Alps foothills in Ed Farmhouse near Birchensgard. Among the selected were two experienced mediums, or contactees as we say today. One of them hides under the mysterious name of Sigrun. The other is Maria Borsig from Zagreb. She speaks of strange things in a trance state, from a civilization in the Taurus constellation. She receives incredible technical information. This knowledge shocked no one. On the contrary, it attracted huge interest, as it concerned the construction of an unusual flying vehicle, which could alter the flow of time around it. A step towards the dream of the secret society, a time machine penetrating deep into history, obtaining the knowledge of ancient high civilizations. Here you see the picture of an aircraft, with the signature of the world-famous German scientist and inventor, Victor Schauberger. This received knowledge passes to scientists for translation to clear technical data for engineering. By 1922, the first model had been built. The device had 3 parallel discs. When brought into motion, the upper and lower discs rotate in opposite directions, creating a very strong magnetic field and anti-gravity effect. If the evidence can be trusted, this design not only floats in the air, but warps the structure of time around it. It is believed this was the prototype of future techno-magical flying saucers, based on non-classical flight principles. These super discs were developed by a special technological unit of the SS, connected to the Anunnaki.
Two basic ideas dominated the minds of senior management in Nazi Germany. First was the creation of a superhuman. The second very important concept was the mastery of technomagic energies. These not only include the possibility of mastering nuclear energy, but also, of course, disc-shaped flying devices. For example, creating a fundamentally new type of flying technology.
The search for ideas went in all directions. It involved not only mediums and engineers, but also historians. Even before the war, Anunnaki expeditions from Germany returned with hundreds of ancient Sanskrit, Chinese and other Oriental language parchments. They were studied very carefully. Werner von Braun, the pioneering engineer and inventor of the fields of rocketry and space travel, later utters, "We have learned a great deal for ourselves from these papers." Expedition results are reported to Hitler personally. Some of it inspired the Third Reich leader to such a degree that thought of wonder weapons and spaceflight didn't leave him until the war's end. Designers try their best, but knowing rotation principles and building anti-gravity super discs aren't enough. An engine's needed, and they don't have it. The technology is hopelessly behind these advanced ideas. In July 1934, Hitler and the leader of Thule and Furrow secret societies invite the inventor Victor Schwarzberger to work with them. His legendary implosion engine is capable of producing light, heat, and mechanical motion with only air and water. They needed one thing from him, to create an engine for flying discs. An agreement was reached, and after 5 years in 1939, a prototype with the real disc in Schwarzberger's engine rose into the air. Here, a rare photograph is preserved, showing a test flight of a winter camouflage disc. Progress with the techno-magical disc was extremely slow. With a lack of experience in field specialists, they were forced to make extraordinary decisions. To develop the super disc, Sonda Bureau 13 was brought in. This special scientific research unit of the SS engaged in very delicate subjects, like the study of unidentified flying objects. Even with top scientists and test pilots, the project came to a standstill, never moving forward again. Everything was top secret.
I spoke to German professor Hermann Ortberg under Bertolt Arthur Swinsky. He was the treater of Werner and von Braun. And I asked him about flying saucers. He said, "Yes, I've heard of them. I have knowledge concerning them. But the SS oversaw that, and we could not discover what our colleagues in Berlin were busy with."
At the end of 1942, a lightly armed flying disc took into the air, named the Vril 1 or Jagger, with a diameter of 11.5 meters. It's alleged that before the war's end, 17 types of flying discs were made, but one should be skeptical of such claims.
I do not think they had a whole collection of flying discs, maybe a few copies, that's all. The Germans wanted to use them as spying devices. When you look inside, look side on, it's almost invisible. The generals who took part in the Battle of Kursk, and 2 Soviet Union heroes I knew personally. A pilot in a tank command described to me what they saw. A disc hung in the sky during the Kursk battle. What was it? They did not know. Neither the Germans nor Russians recognized it. This also wasn't made by us, I assure you. It's true I know Russian aviation history very well.
Among these disc drawings and photos is a saucer identified as the Hannibal. Data on the disc reads like science fiction. According to descriptions, they use an alternate source of energy. The so-called converter of Hans Kohler, which required no fossil fuel. It was even planned to take the Hannibal 3 disc type into space. Hard to believe? Who knows? Here's a trophy photo. The strange pilot suit suggests flights were scheduled to take place. If not in space, then at least in the stratosphere. In the sea's archives, another mysterious document was discovered. It was a blueprint for a huge 139-metre-long cigar-shaped ship called the Andromeda, with hangars for 5 of the flying discs of the Hindenburg II and Viriltime. The purpose of this vehicle? Some believe it was designed for long-term spaceflight. There's another simpler explanation.
Now, this was a project for underwater container, which could be used to transport goods, equipment, technology for the secret bases of the Third Reich, including the Antarctic. According to American intelligence, by the war's end, the Germans had 9 research enterprises developing these flying discs. Investigations revealed that 8 of these factories, along with scientists and key figures, was successfully evacuated from Germany. The 9th was destroyed.
Air Force Lieutenant Colonel Wendell Stevens recalls, "We had classified information that some of these research enterprises were transported to Antarctica to a place called New Swabia. At least one disc research company was transported to that location. Another went to the Amazon, and a third to the north coast of Norway. They were evacuated to secret underground facilities, but the Third Reich didn't have enough time to implement this grandiose plan. It seems by the war's end, techno-magical disc development never reached the industrial production stage. The discs encountered in Antarctica in 1947 were probably not the same discs. Perhaps they were German discs flying on classical principles, ones that had already been developed by the Third Reich. Perhaps as a fallback to their techno-magical projects. A few such prototypes had already been made. Some proved themselves well. It was a giant technological leap, and Germany's opponents weren't even close. But far from the kind of discs that the Reich leaders had in mind.
These prototypes created by the Germans could only fly in the air. At the extreme, perhaps fly over a liquid or solid surface. The same as we have now, flying on a cushion of air like a hovercraft. The reason for this was they were all ventilator-type flying objects. They have an advantage over conventional aircraft. These saucers don't go into a tailspin as they are very easy to operate. But not designed for high speeds and of very poor quality.
One of the most advanced prototypes, the so-called Balonzo flying disc, was tested for the first time and last time on February 14, 1945 in Prague. The lift power was created by the silent flameless engine by Victor Schulberger. Reports say the unpiloted disc reached a height of 15 kilometers in 3 minutes, with a horizontal speed of 2,200 kilometers per hour. The flying disc proved it could hang in the air and fly back and forth without reversing. A success? Absolutely. But war was now on German territory, not waiting for German territorial occupation. The Nazis destroyed any non-conventional prototypes they couldn't evacuate. The only example of the balloon disc was also destroyed. The developer of its main engine, Victor Schauberger, later recalled,
"The model tested in February 1945 was built in collaboration with world-class combustion engineer experts from Mosheim concentration camp. Then they were returned to camp, but then this was the end. It was Hitler who had this prototype blown up."
So these beautiful pictures, depicting flying discs above an Antarctic base, are an artist's fantasy. Other drawings and photos are suspect. They were made to test parts of the disc prototype within certain parameters, or were part of presentations to the authorities for funding purposes. It's vital to credit the German scientists and engineers who achieve huge successes. The Third Reich's leap in science and technology wasn't accidental. Combining scientific research with an analysis of ancient knowledge brought incredible results. However, the defeat the Nazis suffered was not accidental. For the Grail Cup isn't just a symbol of ancient knowledge, but also centuries-old moral code. This code the Nazis deliberately rejected. Many legends and rumors are associated with the discs of the Third Reich. In addition to these stories, there are also tales of German discs flying out of Antarctic waters in 1947.
Regarding the saucers that emerged from the water witnessed in the 1940s, and nowadays the recorded sightings of flights of identified flying objects emerging from seas, ocean, lakes, etc., I am sure that in 1947 the Germans could not have had such technology, neither could any country in the world.
Germans did not attack the American expedition in 1947. Who did? Emerging out of the water, shining saucer spears, cigar-like objects in the polar and surrounding areas are not unusual facts. The northern countries, Central and South America, Australia, South Africa, everywhere identified flying objects are observed. Reports on them are regularly received from the USSR Navy intelligence.
As a commander in Soviet Navy intelligence, I regularly receive reports on such objects detected by witnesses. It would be incorrect to think that unidentified flying objects were only observed in the north. They were also observed across the Atlantic, even in the South Atlantic, near Antarctica. One particular case I am familiar with was where they were observed in the area of the islands of South Georgia. Emerging from beneath the waters, fishermen saw an object. They managed to take a photograph, as is shown here on these pictures. Despite the strong wind, the object remained static for a long time. Clearly it wasn't a cloud or a balloon over the islands of South Georgia.
Over the islands of South Georgia, very strange flying objects were observed. Here's the evidence from one case. The disc hung over the island and was visible for a long time during daylight, just before sunset and just after sunset, for around 1.5 hours to 2 hours. The object had a symmetrical, circular shape.
But within it was a visible isosceles triangle. At night this triangle was not only shown, but lights were observed at the base of the two corners, as if the object had a working engine. However, the object remained in the same spot all the time. Observation of this object occurred in 1979.
3 years before, in 1976, Japanese researchers using the latest equipment detected 19 round objects, which dived from space into Antarctica and disappeared from the screens. Who were they and where did they go? We've now answers to such questions. In the late 1980s, a scientific sensation was created by an American astrophysicist, Kip Thorne, and his colleagues' work. They substantiated the possibility of nearly instantaneous movement in space and travel time. They put forward the idea of wormholes.
Black holes are extremely intriguing, according to which black holes are located at a close distance to our planet and take the form of these wormholes. These wormholes can be used for intergalactic and interstellar travel. Other scientists suggest their work has significant practical characteristics, specifically building time travel devices, ensuring intergalactic travel, so forth.
Kip Thorne concluded that near the Earth, there's an entrance into a wormhole leading to the star Vega.
At that time, without doubt, the Americans already knew very well the way in which the appearance and disappearance of UFOs takes place in the atmosphere of our planet.
In 1992, construction began in Alaska of a powerful radioelectric complex called HARP. Officially, it was to study the ionosphere and the development of missile defense systems. Clandestinely, it was used to develop new weapon types, geophysical, weather, and psychotropic. In essence, a massive beam cannon, a type of global microwave oven. In addition to this, there was something else.
Today we can safely assume that the main purpose of this station is the search for the entrance to the wormhole, which means the Americans came to the conclusion that in this polar region the entrance to the wormhole is located. The station's radio waves allow it to determine the wormhole's configuration, then trace it back and find where the entrance and exit is.
In 1998, the complex in Alaska was put into action. An identical transmitter is built in Norway. On its way is a third, more powerful one in Greenland.
In the early 90s, technical capabilities made it possible to focus only on one side, the Alaska porthole, as an entrance and exit to observe the movement of UFOs on our planet. There was no need to install tracking stations across United States territory. On or other territories, control of just one portal was enough.
However, Earth has two poles. What is the role of each in terms of this theory? Well, for example, they use it both for entry and exit through Alaska, or use the portal to enter and leave Antarctica, and vice versa.
Through Antarctica, the UFO emerges into the atmosphere of our planet, and through Alaska, the North Portal, they leave the planet. This theory of thermal effects does not contradict the fact that the North Pole of our Earth is the entrance and the South Pole of the Earth is an outlet that links our planet with other planets and stars on the level of energetic information.
It's possible our poles' properties are used by unidentified flying objects to communicate with other parts of the universe.
In any case, it would be a subject for serious study. It's no surprise concerning the well-known fact. They believe most of the staff on the American Antarctic Station are personnel of the United States National Security Agency, employees of American Military Technical Intelligence, Electronic Intelligence, and Central Intelligence Agency employees. These categories represent the main research personnel on American Antarctic stations.
Perhaps the scientists of the Third Reich also inferred the Arctic and Antarctica were not just Earth's poles. Perhaps it's also no coincidence that in Nazi Germany, the Hollow Earth theory, where the poles are presented as gates to the stars, was so popular. Perhaps at this bizarre idea's heart, a vague understanding was reached, something akin to recently discovered wormholes, along with the possibility of space and time travel. This may be why Antarctica attracted Germans to its shores. The sixth continent continues to keep its secrets. New questions are raised, and over the years the list hasn't gotten any smaller. What happened to the research to build flying saucers? Did it stop after the war, or continue in secret places around the globe? Is it correct to attribute one of the sacred developments to all UFO sightings? UFOs were observed long ago, even during the time of Alexander and Macedon. What kind of objects emerged from the water? Attacking Admiral Byrd's expedition. Great unknown beings whom the Germans strove passionately to cooperate with. What is it? Myth? Or real-life existing forces that for thousands of years have conducted their invisible activities here on planet Earth? Have you looked at the skies lately? Have you done your research? I sure hope you do after this show production. Here's to you and new knowledge coming your way. Cheers. However, Earth has two portals.
The theory of tidal effect. We try again, eh? It's no surprise, considering the well-known fact. 3 unidentified flying objects. So if they try again one more time. The theory of tidal effect. We try again, eh?
The government are hiding evidence that there's life.
This photo is going around on Facebook, and I don't think that they have done anything to modify that picture. I think that's exactly, that's what it looks like. Yes. It is a 18-armed crab monster.
Any person who says there is humans on Mars could be considered as insane. But what if there are images? If there are testimonies, evidence that could prove this a possibility? What should we think then? These evidences show that the impossible could very well be a reality. This is Fernando Correa. Scientists have said that Mars cannot hold any life. The atmosphere is weak, just as the magnetic field. It is said there is no oxygen on Mars. It is and has a low temperature. Could there be microscopical or even human life on Mars then? Investigations show Mars was very similar to Earth at one time. No one knows how long ago it happened. These evidences show there could be actual human beings on Mars. Now there's information about Jackie, a former worker for the Viking mission. In 1979, she saw two men working on Mars. On May 11, 2006, she was listening to the radio show by Gene Norrie. The show was talking about it with a CIA former agent, John Lear. Jackie wanted to know about the mystery of Viking. She wanted to know about the humans she saw in 1979.
I used to work at NASA during that time and handling downlink telemetry, and one night on our video monitors while, the little Viking rover was running around, I see two men in suits, not necessarily space suits.
Human beings being recorded by Vikings cameras on Mars. Jackie said they worked on this rover from NASA.
They came over the horizon walking towards the Viking Explorer, and our vision got cut off. I didn't see what they did with it or anything else.
Jackie spoke of humans on Mars 28 years before this picture from Spirit was taken in November of 2007. A woman sitting on a rock. Special filters show a female shape. This picture shows the existence of humans, men, on Mars. Near to this place, Rover Spirit caught an image of some kind of home, or stones arranged as a building. There is more about the witness, Jackie. She asked about these men near the Viking, who she saw.
We're probably making repairs.
Well, that's why I was wondering if they were our guys or not, because
they were.
Do you know what kind of suits they wore?
Pardon?
Do you know what kind of suits they wore?
Well, they wouldn't have to wear very much. I mean, the atmosphere is, there's enough atmosphere to walk around without a spacesuit on Mars.
The inventor of the Learjet, the former CIA pilot, John Lear, said that humans can be there on Mars. That there can be humans on the moon as well.
There is on the moon. I mean, there's not, it's like about 15,000 feet on Earth. Now, you can go through a 24-hour acclimatization program on the moon, and you can walk around without a spacesuit. Same thing on Mars. You don't need a spacesuit. If they had one, it was
I could
just
see
minimal.
the rust-red terrain of Mars. I could see that Mars has a pale blue sky. And I turned and I saw a small human being from our civilization on Earth run up to me. And then two more individuals a couple years older than me, I would say they were maybe 21, 22, 23 years of age, ran up to me, two men and a woman. And they were clearly human beings from Earth. They weren't Martians.
What is the temperature on Mars? What do they eat on Mars?
Very good questions. It's about 70 degrees.
Curiosity confirmed the words from Basiago. In 2013, this picture confirmed the sky on Mars is also blue. On that first year, Curiosity noticed that temperatures are not so cold. We can find the structure with Google Mars, on Mars, an artificial structure. A base that has been mentioned by Andrew Basiago. Basiago and Jackie's version support each other. We have also the words by John Lear.
Yeah, absolutely. They were going, just like Mars rover, cleaning off the dust. They had their paper towels and Windex, and it just confirms what's going on.
Solar panels have been covered by dust many times. 7 days later, they are clean again. We do not know who cleans the rover solar panels. Jackie's version is supported by the words of John Lear, also by the story of Andrew Basiago. More and more evidences show the possibility of humans being there on Mars.
That's how many people go down.
Why are they doing that?
Dude, I'm not feeling that.
What is that, dude? What the fuck? The numbers in the sky.
Numbers popping up in the air out of nowhere.
Bruh, they're just fucking.
There's no airplane, no nothing.
What the?
Look at, there goes another one. There goes another one.
What the fuck?
Popping up out of nowhere.
Oh my God, there goes another one.
Look.
Oh my God.
Smoke rings. The guy blowing smoke rings. Look at that shit. Look at all those smoke rings you lit. That's crazy. Oh, at least this little add something new to the dilemma here. I got one before like that. Anyway, they're bastards. Over and out.
And this is overlooking Halifax. And we've got some really strange weather happening because of some really bright sorry for my coughing. Some really bright flashes like lightning, but much sharper and stronger and brighter there. Look, see that? But yet there's no rain clouds in the sky. All we've got is this really, really, really long black line. Let's see if we can see it here. If I zoom in too much, you won't see it. Okay. So we got this black line going across the sky all the way down there. But as you can see, there's almost no clouds in the sky. So this is a weird storm. There's no wind, just a little tiny bit of wind. But I've never seen this before because there's really no rain clouds. What we've got, you can't see it on this camera, unfortunately. But with my eyes I can see it really well. You've got, I'll zoom in to show it. This line right here goes all the way across the city. You can't see it with this camera, what I can see with my eyes. And there's another line above it, which is, I can't show you. The camera doesn't see well enough. But basically what we've got is a great big long giant, this is a big long chemtrail. It's just one big white streamer going across the sky. And that streamer is letting off some really, really bright lights.
There.
Well, of course, there's been a lot of evidence coming in the last 6 or 7 months, seismic information, defining the core of the Earth much better. 4 days ago, we had 2 aurora borealises, one over the North Pole, one over the South Pole. It happened to coincide with a time when the solar wind was very low, less than 350 kilometers per second. Proton density was really light. Bottom line is, it really adds credence to the idea that there is a thinning of the crust at the poles, and we have a strong ion stream coming out of the Earth into our own atmosphere, creating the aurora borealis from the ground up. As you know, a year ago in February, NASA launched the Themis probes, which is a set of 5 satellites that went up to try to understand better why the aurora borealis behaves the way that it does. We don't really have a lot of data from those satellites yet, and I think the reason is the data that's coming in conflicts with the normal, or shall I say mainstream geological viewpoint of how the Earth is constructed.